The movie introduces us to Sofia, a talented blind pianist who is part of an orchestra. After finishing her workday, she heads home but makes a stop at a nearby cafe. There, she hears news about the war in Bosnia, a conflict that took place between 1992 and 1995, leaving over 10,000 dead and millions displaced. The news also mentions Zoran Radic, a former Serbian war criminal who now presents himself as a philanthropist but faces new accusations of allegedly organizing a network for arms and human trafficking. Upon returning to her building, Sofia encounters her upstairs neighbor, Veronique. With joy, Sofia praises the aroma surrounding her, revealing her keen sense of smell. Veronique thanks her for her performance at her father's event and asks if she felt comfortable during the presentation. Sofia responds that her father is sick and needs the money, so she doesn't care about anything else. She then asks Veronique the name of her perfume, but she decides to keep it a secret. Later, in her apartment, Sofia sits at the piano but gets distracted by loud noises coming from the floor above. Soon, she hears Veronique and another person in a heated argument. However, she decides to ignore the noise and prepares to sleep. That night, she has vivid nightmares from her childhood, where someone locked her in a closet to protect her. Upon waking, she hears Veronique arguing again upstairs. The next day, while returning home from work, Sofia slips on the stairs and injures her hand. As she grabs what caused her fall, she discovers a woman's shawl, which has a distinct smell. She then checks her mailbox and finds a small glass vial with liquid, after which she smells the shawl again. Afterward, she heads to the basement to take out the trash and takes the elevator back to her apartment. On the ground floor, Veronique suddenly enters the elevator with a look of terror, being chased by a man. Worried, Sofia asks what's wrong, but Veronique assures her that she is fine. Before parting on Sofia's floor, she approaches her and asks her to take care of something for her, revealing that the name of her secret perfume is liquid gold. Back in her room, Sofia hears Veronique arguing with someone in her upstairs apartment before hearing her laugh strangely. Suddenly, she realizes that Veronique has fallen from her balcony and lies dead on the street. Shortly after, some police officers arrive at Sofia's apartment to inform her about the tragedy. A detective named Oscar Mills asks her about her relationship with Veronique. Sofia replies that she didn't know her well and that they rarely spoke. When Mills asks if she heard anything from upstairs, she denies it, claiming she was wearing headphones at the time. In another scene, we meet a man named Mark, who is chasing Veronique in the elevator. He is sitting in a car with his sister, Alex, and seems very distressed. Alex asks for the USB drive that Veronique was supposed to have, but Mark claims he doesn't have it. Upon hearing this, his sister urges him to go back to the apartment and look for it. We also find out that it was Zoran Radic who sent them on this mission to eliminate Veronique. However, a worried Mark mentions that there was a woman in the elevator who saw him, so Alex insists that he needs to get rid of her. The scene shifts to the morgue, where Detective Mills arrives accompanied by a doctor. The doctor reveals that the evidence suggests Veronique committed suicide, as there are no signs of a struggle. However, they also discover that Veronique had recently undergone nose surgery and had dyed her hair just a week before. The detective questions why someone would make such changes if they truly intended to take their own life. The next day, we see Sofia at the orchestra, where she struggles to concentrate. On her way home, she hears the news about Zoran Radic again and is surprised to learn that he is Veronique's father, who has just left the morgue after identifying his daughter's body. However, people do not treat him kindly, as Radic is a widely despised figure. Later, upon arriving at her apartment, Sofia encounters Mark, who is waiting for her with a gun. Upon seeing him, she quickly realizes that he is blind. In the bathroom, Sofia hears a noise outside and suddenly opens the door, but Mark is no longer there. She notices that the front door is open, indicating that the man has left. Meanwhile, Mills receives a call from the coroner, who informs him that Veronique was 12 weeks pregnant. This news surprises the detective, who asks the doctor to keep this information confidential. The scene changes to the afternoon, where Radic is holding a meeting in honor of his deceased daughter. Mark is also present with Alex and reveals that he couldn't find the USB in the apartment. However, Alex is confident that it is still in the building. Mark shows him some ultrasound images he found, confirming Veronique's pregnancy. Upon hearing this, Alex tells him not to worry and assures him that the baby probably wasn't his. At that moment, Sofia arrives at the party and sits down at the piano to play. Radic gives a speech expressing his grief over the loss of his daughter. Despite the sadness, he mentions that he is determined to focus his attention on his charity, which helps war refugees. After his speech, Sofia begins to play a melancholic piece on the piano, catching Radic's attention. After her performance, he asks her how she knew that melody. Sofia replies that she learned it from Veronique, as they were neighbors. Radic is surprised to hear this and takes her to his office while Alex and Mark watch in astonishment. In his office, Radic offers Sofia a glass of champagne and mentions that his daughter had problems, especially in the last days of her life. However, Sofia defends Veronique, stating that she was always very kind to her. She reveals that Veronique had asked her to play that particular melody because her father used to hum it when she was a child. At that moment, Alex interrupts the meeting, prompting Radic to excuse himself to speak with her. During this time, Sofia takes out a vial from her bag, which turns out to be poison. She tries to pour it into Radic's drink but accidentally drops it on the floor. Alex, for his part, asks Radic to show his grief in front of people instead of trying to seduce a blind pianist. Soon, Radic returns to Sofia, prompting her to quickly cover the vial with her feet. Radic mentions that the meeting must conclude for now but that he would love to see her again. Sofia agrees, but before leaving, she discreetly crushes the vial and drops her champagne glass to hide the remnants. Later, Sofia feels like someone is following her on her way home and discovers that it's Mark. Shortly after, she enters a dark alley where a group of men harasses her. To her surprise, Mark appears to rescue her and confronts the attackers. After the confrontation, they head to a nearby cafe. Mark reveals that he works for her sister, who runs a security consulting firm. Sofia mentions the recent death of her upstairs neighbor and expresses her shock. She also shows him Veronique's shawl, assuring him that she can still smell her scent. When Mark asks if she heard anything on the day of the death, Sofia replies that she didn't, as she was wearing headphones. She then thanks Mark for saving her and prepares to leave. However, before exiting the cafe, she asks a musician friend to play a specific piece if he ever runs into Mark. The next morning, Sofia has a terrifying nightmare about her childhood, in which her family was murdered and their house burned down, but she was saved by a man. Later, while playing the piano, she remembers the last time she saw Veronique and how she put something in her pocket, which turns out to be the USB drive Mark was looking for. At that moment, she is visited by Detective Mills, who claims to have been upstairs and heard her piano. He then asks if she remembers anything new about the incident, but Sofia says no. Mills reveals that Veronique was pregnant before she died, which leaves Sofia in shock. After the detective leaves, Sofia goes out and meets a man named Neil, who turns out to be her adoptive father. Neil tells her that she needs to disappear, as Detective Mills is a dedicated man who will soon discover her true name and background. However, Sofia refuses and suddenly insists that she must first take revenge on Radic. It is revealed that she is a victim of the Bosnian War and that her entire family was killed on Radic's orders. Neil, who rescued her from the war and gave her a new life, has been her guardian ever since. At that moment, Sofia hands Neil a USB drive and tells him it's something important, as Radic killed his daughter for it. She suggests he try liquid gold as the password. Meanwhile, we find out that Mark is watching them from a distance. Later, as Sofia is returning home, she is suddenly kidnapped by a group of thugs. Inside the van, they begin to torture her, demanding to know where the USB drive is. Sofia denies having it, but they don't believe her. Suddenly, the van is attacked. It turns out to be Mark again, who brutally beats all the thugs and manages to rescue Sofia from the dangerous situation. Afterwards, Mark asks Sofia to hand over the USB drive so he can help her, but she insists she knows nothing about it. Mark realizes she is lying, as he saw her earlier speaking in Bosnian with Neil. He asks if this is revenge against Radic for his war crimes, but Sofia denies it as well. At that moment, one of the thugs attacks Mark and stabs him with a knife. Mark quickly pulls away as the police arrive to help the blind woman. Later, we see Sofia in a hospital bed, and Neil comes to visit her. He reveals that he is very ill and doesn't have much time left. He then returns the USB drive, confirming that the password was correct. Neil states that the USB contains all the necessary information to take down Radique's operation. He also explains that Veronique was betraying her father by passing this critical information to the Russians. However, she wasn't working alone. Two aliases called Srebro and Zlato were communicating with each other. Zlato, which means gold in Bosnian, was Veronique, and now they just need to find Srebro, which means silver. After the old man leaves, Sofia gets up and escapes from the hospital. When he arrives home, he realizes that the family photo has disappeared from the frame. At that moment, he hears melancholic music coming from the cafe, the same one he had asked the musician to play if Mark was nearby. Shortly after, the musician approaches Mark with Veronique's shawl, claiming that Sofia has invited him to meet her. Thus, Mark heads to Veronique's apartment, where Sofia begins to talk about her childhood and reveals that she had a sister. She describes how her father used to blindfold her sister and teach her to play the piano, intending for both of them to share the same pain. After sharing this, Sofia blindfolds Mark, and they end up making love. Later, Sofia confesses that she is from Bosnia and that her parents had known Radique for a long time, as they were neighbors. However, on a tragic day, Serbian soldiers arrived and brutally murdered her entire family, with Radique as their commander. She was the only survivor of the massacre. Suddenly, she changes the subject and mentions that she heard noises from the upstairs that night, wondering who sent to kill Veronique. Mark responds that it was his sister but clarifies that he didn't kill Veronique, he was just trying to persuade her to flee, but she got scared and jumped off the balcony. Upon hearing this, Sofia expresses her desire to be alone with Alex. The next day, the two women meet at an art museum. Sofia hands over a USB drive, and Alex returns the family photo, although it is evident that both have made copies. Sofia reveals that she knows Alex was collaborating with Veronique to betray Radique. Her full name is Alexandra Gordon, and her initials, AG, represent the chemical symbol for silver, known as Srebro in her language. This revelation frightens Alex, who asks Sofia what she wants. Sofia's demand is clear: she wants to be alone with Radique at Veronique's funeral the next day. However, the next day, Alex decides to act as the villain. She meets with Radique and shows him Sofia's family portrait, revealing her true background. After the funeral, Radique approaches Sofia and takes her to his car to talk privately. He mentions that everyone wants to kill him, but they can't change the past. Suddenly, Sofia pulls out a knife to attack him, but he stops her. Radique drops a bombshell: in her village, he assaulted Sofia's mother, but she never told anyone. Later, that woman gave birth to a child, and Radique realized he was the father. This revelation shocks Sofia, as it means she is Radique's biological daughter. Additionally, Radique confesses that when the war broke out, he returned to the village and assaulted Sofia's mother again before killing her. As Sofia processes this information, Radique tries to kill her. Desperate, Sofia reveals that someone close to him is betraying him, and that person is named Srebro. She then opens the car door and escapes into the crowd of protesters. After this, she calls Neil but is devastated to learn that he passed away the night before. However, the person on the other end reveals that Neil had made all the arrangements for Sofia to escape the country. Elsewhere, Alex meets with Radique, who tells her he will get rid of the blind girl that night. Suddenly, he asks her to sign some documents, and Radique realizes her signature, commenting on how simple it is, just AG, which means Srebro. Alex realizes that Radique has discovered the truth. In a panic, she meets with Mark, who tells her that Radique knows everything and will kill her. However, Mark advises her to go to the airport and try to escape, assuring her that he will go help Sofia because she is in danger. Alex pleads for help, insisting that they are bound by blood, but Mark refuses, as the blame for the death of his unborn child falls on her. After leaving, Alex, distressed, gets into the car that will take her to the airport. Meanwhile, Radique arrives at Sofia's apartment and comments on the irony that two of his daughters live in the same building and both conspire to kill him. Without wasting time, he attacks Sofia and overpowers her despite her efforts to resist. Outside, Mark confronts two henchmen. After a tough fight, he manages to subdue the second man and enters the apartment. Meanwhile, Radique is about to strangle Sofia to death. She grabs a glass to hit him, but Mark appears and pushes him off the balcony, where Radique is impaled on an iron fence. After these events, Sofia is furious because she wanted to kill Radique herself. However, Mark insists that she would have regretted it for the rest of her life. Then, she rushes to help him when she notices he is mortally wounded in the stomach. This leaves Mark in shock, while Sofia accidentally reveals that she has been faking her blindness all this time. Through a flashback of her childhood, we discover that Sofia's sister was the blind one, but she died during the massacre. Since then, Sofia has assumed her sister's identity, pretending to be blind for years to maintain the deception. At this point, Mark decides to take all the blame for Radique's death, as he is a wanted criminal. However, he states that he doesn't want to see her leave. Then, Sofia places Veronique's shawl over his eyes before fleeing the scene. The police arrive at the apartment moments later, and Detective Mills sees Sofia in the street but does nothing to stop her. As the film concludes, Sofia remembers the good times she spent with her family.